You ever wake up in the middle of the night and just know something's off? Not because of a noise or a nightmare, just that heavy, gut-deep feeling like the world shifted while you were sleeping. That's exactly how I started noticing it. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but I wasn't. My wife, Sarah, wasn't next to me in bed. She was gone. The front door was unlocked. No shoes by the mat. I didn't panic. Not yet. Maybe she went for a walk. Maybe she couldn't sleep. But then it started happening again. And again. And always at the same time. 3:12 a.m. The so-called witching hour. You clicked on this video for a reason. Something in that title caught you. My wife's childhood home is abandoned, but she visits it every night. You want answers, and I promise you'll get them. But before I hand them over, I want you to really listen. This isn't just a spooky story for background noise. It's not some clickbait Reddit mystery. This is something I lived through. And by the time you hear the whole truth, you might start questioning the people you love most, just like I did. We all think we know the people we marry, right? We trust them with everything. We build a life, make plans, joke about the future. But how well do you really know someone? Can you ever be sure they've told you everything, especially about their past? That's the part no one talks about. The part that came before you. I thought Sarah was an open book. Sweet, kind, never raised her voice. Always smiling, always calm. But the truth is, there were pages missing. And those missing pages? They led me to the rotting, two-story house at the end of Greystone Lane. The house that's been abandoned for nearly 20 years. The one I was told had burned down. I know you might be thinking, okay, so your wife sleepwalks. Maybe it's just some unresolved childhood trauma. And honestly, I thought the same thing at first. I even laughed it off the first few times. I mean, it was strange, sure, but not terrifying. That came later. That came when I followed her. When I made the mistake of trying to understand. Because once you pull at a thread like this, you can't stop. You can't go back to how things were. You either unravel everything, or let it strangle you. Now I'm going to be real with you. I debated telling this story for a long time. Not just because it's painful, but because I don't know if I should. But when I saw how many people online are dealing with unexplained behavior, sleepwalking, secret obsessions, or disturbing patterns in their partners, I realized I'm not the only one. This story might help someone else. And maybe it'll help me make peace with what I found. So if you're here for horror, mystery, true story vibes, or just something that'll mess with your head in the best possible way, stick around. Don't skip. Don't scroll away. Every second of this video reveals something crucial. I've laid it all out piece by piece like a puzzle. If you blink, you'll miss the clue that ties it all together. I'm not here to waste your time. I'm here to take you on a ride you won't forget. Let me tell you how it all started. It was a rainy Thursday night about a month ago. I was working late in my home office, just finishing up an edit for a client when I noticed something move past the hallway camera on my phone. We had installed a couple of motion sensors and indoor cams for security. Nothing high-tech, just enough to keep an eye on things. I saw her on the screen, Sarah, barefoot, in her nightgown, walking slowly down the hallway. Her head was tilted slightly to the side, her arms limp at her sides. But here's the thing, her eyes were open. I called out, but she didn't respond. I got up, followed her outside. It was cold. Wet. The kind of night where you just want to stay in bed. But she was already halfway down the street. I grabbed a coat and shoes and followed her from a distance, staying in the shadows, just in case this was some kind of sleepwalking episode. She walked with purpose, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Past the gas station, past the church, through the woods behind the high school, until she stopped at a chain-link fence. Behind it, a dilapidated house with peeling paint and broken windows. The grass was overgrown, the driveway cracked and sinking. That's when I realized I'd seen this house before. Not in person, but in a photograph Sarah kept hidden in her old journal. She had told me it was her childhood home, but that it had burned down in an electrical fire when she was 9. Her parents didn't survive. That's what she said. And I believed her. But this house wasn't ashes. It was very real, and she was walking toward it. I watched as she slipped through a hole in the fence like she'd done it dozens of times. She stepped up onto the porch, which creaked under her weight, and the front door, supposedly locked for years, opened without resistance. She went inside. I stood there in the cold for what felt like forever, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to scream her name. Part of me wanted to call for help. But something about the air around that place, it was like the world held its breath. I pulled out my phone, started recording. I needed proof. Not just for myself, but in case something went wrong. Then I saw something that made my stomach twist. In the second-story window, through a tear in the curtains, a figure moved behind her. Not a shadow. Not a trick of the light. Someone or something was in that house. And she wasn't alone. Now, before we dive any deeper, I want you to really think about what you'd do. If the person you loved most was hiding something this massive, if they were being drawn to a place that shouldn't even exist anymore, would you let them keep going? Would you confront them? Or would you follow them into the dark, hoping you don't get lost in whatever they're trying to escape? Because what I found inside that house changed everything. It wasn't just about Sarah's past. It was about mine too. About how our lives were connected long before we ever met. And how the truth had been buried, literally, beneath the floorboards of that house for decades. You think you're ready for what comes next? You're not. But I'm going to tell you anyway. Because the next time you see someone staring blankly out a window at 3 a.m., you might wonder if they're really sleepwalking or if they're answering a call that was never meant for you to hear. I didn't sleep the night she walked into that house. I stood outside in the cold drizzle until the clouds thinned and the sky shifted from black to ash gray. The front door never opened again. She never came back out, not until sunrise. And when she did, she looked different, like someone who had just woken from a nightmare but couldn't remember it. Her skin was pale, damp with sweat, and her hair clung to her face in long strands, but her eyes were distant, unfocused, as if she were still somewhere inside. She didn't say a word, just walked straight past me, barefoot, shivering, and started heading home like nothing had happened. I didn't stop her. I couldn't. I just followed, letting the questions swirl inside me until they turned heavy enough to settle deep in my chest. When we got home, she curled up in bed like she hadn't been gone all night. I lay beside her, pretending to sleep, heart thudding as I watched the ceiling turn gold with morning light, wondering how long this had been going on behind my back. That day, I started digging. I told myself it was to protect her. Maybe it was. Or maybe I was already afraid of her, afraid of what she might be doing or what might be controlling her. I went online and searched for records of the house, trying every variation of address I could remember. I scoured property records, old news archives, even death certificates. But nothing matched. It was like the place had been erased. No fire reports. No police involvement. No obituary for her parents. Not in that town, not in any surrounding towns either. I looked up satellite images and street view footage from years ago. In every one, that house was hidden under thick trees, as if it didn't want to be seen. I even asked Sarah's aunt, the only living relative she ever mentioned, about the house. Her voice went tight when I brought it up. She changed the subject almost instantly, told me Sarah had always been a very imaginative child, and that not all memories are worth reopening. That only made me dig deeper. Around the same time, Sarah started acting strange during the day, too. She was forgetful, distracted, sometimes even paranoid. She'd lose her train of thought mid-sentence, blink rapidly, like she was waking from a trance. One afternoon, I found her sitting in the hallway, staring at the attic door. Not moving, not speaking, just frozen. When I asked her what she was doing, she whispered something under her breath, but I couldn't make it out. When I reached for her shoulder, she flinched like I'd struck her. Her eyes darted around like she didn't know where she was. A few seconds later, she stood up, smiled faintly, and walked away as if nothing happened. I knew I should have taken her to a doctor or a therapist, but part of me was scared they'd tell me she was fine. And part of me was scared they'd confirm my worst fear, that she wasn't. The next time she left at 3:12 a.m., I followed her again. But this time, I took a drone with a night vision camera and set it to hover over the house. I wanted to see what she did inside. I parked far enough that the buzzing wouldn't be heard, then watched the live feed from my phone. What I saw that night still chills me to the core. She didn't just walk in and stand around. She lit candles. Not just a few, dozens of them, placed in a perfect circle across the living room floor. She stood in the middle, eyes closed, swaying, whispering words I couldn't make out. And then the lights in the room dimmed. Not just from the camera feed. The drone's IR sensor dropped to static for a few seconds, and when it cleared again, there was something standing behind her. It was tall. Too tall. And it didn't move like a person. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run in and pull her out, but I was frozen. Watching. Helpless. Then just like that, the candles flickered out and the screen went black. When I sprinted to the house, the front door was locked. Every window was boarded shut. No sign of entry. No sign of Sarah. I started banging on the walls, calling her name like a maniac. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Wet footsteps, squishing on the porch, and when I turned, she was standing there, holding her phone, asking what I was doing. She looked perfectly normal, as if she'd never left the house, as if she'd been behind me the whole time. I checked the drone footage later that morning. Every second of video after the static cut to black. Not corrupted. Not deleted. Just gone. After that night, things got worse. The dreams started. I'd see that house in my sleep, except it wasn't abandoned. It was glowing from within, warm and full of life. Children laughed in the distance. Someone played a piano. Sarah would be there, younger, barefoot, in a white dress, always running just out of reach. And always, in the background, there'd be a man. Face blurred, voice distorted, watching me. I'd wake up soaked in sweat, and sometimes I'd find Sarah already awake, staring at me like she'd just come back from the same dream. The real tipping point came a week later, when I found a box in our garage that I know I didn't put there. It was old, wrapped in twine, sealed with wax stamped in a strange symbol, like two crescent moons mirrored over a flame. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, all of Sarah as a child. Some were candid, playing in a backyard, holding a cat, sitting on a porch swing. But others were deeply unsettling. In several, she wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking behind it. In one, a mirror caught a reflection of the man I'd seen in my dream. In another, she was standing outside that same house, only this time it wasn't rotting. It was pristine. Brand new. Like the photo had been taken yesterday. I confronted her, gently, asking where the box came from. She denied ever seeing it before. But she held one of the photographs for a long time, studying it, her hands trembling. Then she said something that made my blood turn cold. She said, "He told me not to open the door until I was ready. But I think I already did." I don't know what door she meant. I don't know who he is. And I still don't know how much of what's happening is real, or if something is warping both of our memories. But I do know this. Whatever is going on with Sarah didn't start when she was 9. It goes back further. Maybe even before she was born. There are layers here, rituals, people watching us, even coded messages hidden in the photos I found. Every time I think I've reached the bottom, I discover another secret buried beneath it. I've started to believe that her family wasn't lost in a fire, they were taken. That the house isn't haunted, it's waiting. And Sarah? She's not just visiting. She's becoming part of it. And the worst part? Last night, I caught myself standing outside the house at 3:12 a.m., barefoot, staring at the door. And I don't remember how I got there. I didn't tell Sarah what happened that night. How I'd woken up in the driveway, mud on my feet, pine needles clinging to my pajama pants, with no memory of how I got there. But she must have known something was off, because for the next few days, she watched me the way I had been watching her. Like she was waiting for something to change. I noticed her eyes lingered longer than usual when I passed by a mirror, like she was checking for signs of something. The air between us turned heavy, cautious, like we were both pretending not to notice the rot creeping through the walls of our lives. That same morning, when I checked the app that tracked the drone's flight history, I saw something new. It had pinged a GPS marker during the blackout. A short, erratic loop, back and forth, before it froze midair. That marker wasn't over the house. It was over a clearing in the woods, less than a mile from it. A place I'd never noticed before. I waited until Sarah left to run errands and headed there with my camera and a flashlight, just in case. The forest was eerily silent. Even the birds were gone. As I stepped into the clearing, I felt it immediately, a kind of pressure behind the eyes, like walking into a room full of static. In the center, half buried beneath wet leaves and broken branches, was a stone slab no wider than a grave, covered in symbols. The same crescent flame from the wax seal on the box. My heart started racing. I should have turned back. I should have left it alone. But I couldn't. I brushed away more leaves and saw what looked like names, faint, worn down, but still there. The first was Eliza Wren. The second was Samuel Wren. And below that, in small, childish writing, Sarah Wren. My wife's maiden name was Foster. At least, that's what she told me. I stood there, staring, trying to make sense of it, when I heard something snap behind me. Not an animal. Not the wind. It was the sharp, deliberate crack of a boot heel on a branch. When I turned around, no one was there. But I swear I heard breathing. Heavy. Close. I ran. I didn't look back. And when I finally reached the edge of the forest and saw the faint outline of our house again, I felt the same thing I had that night at the fence, the sense that something ancient and patient was watching. That night, I confronted Sarah. I showed her a picture of the stone. I asked her who Eliza and Samuel were. At first, she just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then her hands started to shake. She told me they were her real parents. That Foster wasn't her birth name. It was the name of her aunt, who raised her after the incident. Asked what incident, and she said nothing for a long time. Just looked past me, toward the front door, like she was afraid something might walk through it. Then, finally, she whispered, I was supposed to die with them, but he said I had to be kept safe, that I wasn't ready yet. I wanted to ask who he was, but something in her voice made me stop. There was a finality to it, like repeating the name might pull it into the room with us. That night, I dreamed of the house again. Only this time, I wasn't a visitor. I was inside it, sitting at a table with a woman whose face was turned away, humming a tune I recognized from somewhere deep in childhood, though I couldn't place it. The wallpaper pulsed like breathing skin. A clock ticked backwards. The woman turned, and I saw her face. It was Sarah, but not the Sarah I knew. Her eyes were hollow. Her smile was wide, and too many teeth deep. She reached across the table, touched my hand, and said, You've always been part of this. You just forgot. I woke up gasping, convinced I wasn't alone in the room. The clock by the bed read 3:12. That number, 3:12 a.m., had started showing up everywhere. On receipts, parking meters, even my browser tabs. Like it was chasing me. I did more digging, this time on forums. Occult discussion boards. Urban legends. Missing persons cases. That's when I stumbled across something that turned my stomach. A post dated 15 years ago, titled The Wren House Ritual. The user's account had been deleted, but the thread was still live. It described a set of steps that had to be followed in complete silence, always at 3:12 a.m., always by a bloodline descendant of the house's original occupants. It described lighting candles in a circle, speaking the returning phrase, allowing the gate to open just long enough. Then came the part that chilled me to the bone. If interrupted, the gate remains ajar, and the offering must be replaced. I sat there reading that line over and over, the weight of it pressing on my chest like a physical thing. The offering must be replaced. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't want to. But I started to suspect that Sarah hadn't been walking into the house by choice. That maybe the ritual was using her. Or worse, that she was using it and didn't know why. The next night, I couldn't sleep. I walked downstairs to clear my head, and I heard a voice. Not Sarah's. A low, rasping male voice coming from the attic. I crept up the stairs, phone in hand, not daring to call out. When I reached the attic door, it was open just a crack. I pushed it slowly, and the creak it made felt deafening. Inside, Sarah was kneeling in front of a mirror, whispering to it. There was no reflection, just darkness. She turned her head slightly and said, "He knows you're watching now." I stumbled back, heart pounding, nearly dropping my phone. She didn't follow me, didn't even acknowledge me again, just kept whispering to the empty mirror. I locked myself in the bedroom that night. And in the morning, she acted like nothing had happened, like she didn't remember any of it. That's when I started filming everything. Every room, every night. Hidden cameras, motion sensors, audio recorders. I wasn't just trying to catch Sarah in the act. I was trying to prove to myself that this was real, that I wasn't losing my mind. But what I captured only raised more questions. Footage would glitch out at exactly 3:12. Audio would distort into static. And on more than one occasion, I'd see things move, shadows where there shouldn't be any, objects vanishing and reappearing in different places. Then came the twist I never saw coming. 3 days ago, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid, faded, water-damaged, but still legible. It showed a baby in someone's arms. Not Sarah. Me. In front of the Wren house. And on the back, in shaky handwriting, "You were the first one he marked." Now everything's changed. Now I don't just have to figure out what's happening to Sarah. I have to figure out why I'm part of it. Because if the gate's been open this whole time, then I was never just an observer. I was always part of the ritual. The moment I saw that Polaroid, me as a baby in front of the Wren house, held by someone whose face was conveniently cut off at the edge of the frame, something in me cracked. Not snapped, not in a way that sent me spiraling, but cracked like an old floorboard bending under the weight of truth. That picture wasn't just a clue. It was a revelation. It proved this wasn't just Sarah's past pulling at our lives, it was mine too. Somehow, we were both bound to that house, to whatever power it held. I had spent weeks chasing shadows, watching her like she was the only one caught in something sinister, only to find out I might have been the original offering all along. Suddenly, everything I thought I understood collapsed. My childhood, my family, even my name felt like borrowed pieces of someone else's story. I called my mother, the woman who raised me, and for the first time in my life, asked if I was adopted. Silence. Then tears. She said she never meant to lie, but I was found in a fire station in a different county. No birth certificate. No records. Just a blanket with the same crescent moon and flame symbol embroidered in the corner. After that call, I didn't waste time. I went back to the Wren house alone. This time with a plan. If I was tied to this place, then I needed to face it. I needed to understand what had started here and why it wouldn't let us go. I got there just before midnight, parked at the edge of the woods, and walked straight toward the clearing where the stone slab lay. It was glowing faintly, pulsing in the moonlight. I stepped into the clearing and sat down in front of it, like I was waiting for something. And I didn't have to wait long. The air shifted. A warmth settled over the night like breath against my neck. Then I heard him, the same voice from the attic, the same tone that had haunted Sarah's sleep. Deep. Measured. Ancient. Welcome home. He didn't appear in front of me. Not at first. He appeared in pieces. In the rustle of leaves, in the flicker of shadows, in the thrum of blood behind my ears. "The cycle must complete," he said. She opened the door. "You are the key." I don't know what came over me. Maybe I'd had enough of running. Maybe I was tired of being a pawn. But I said something I hadn't meant to say out loud. "Take me instead." The forest went still. The light from the stone brightened. "You were always mine," the voice said. "But now you choose it. That is the difference." Then everything went white. Not like passing out, not like some special effects horror moment. Just pure, overwhelming light and silence. When I woke up, I was inside the house. Not the ruined, abandoned one, but the living version from my dreams. The floors were clean, the candles lit, the same tune from my nightmares hummed through the air. Sarah was there, standing at the top of the staircase, her eyes wide with recognition but not fear. You remember now, she said. I nodded. I remembered the fire. I remembered the ritual. I remembered being carried out as the others burned, saved not out of mercy, but because I was marked. The he we had been hearing, dreaming about, was never a man. It was something older, something bound to the land, feeding off the bloodline that once served it. The Wren family wasn't cursed. They were vessels. And when they tried to break the cycle, it demanded new ones. I took Sarah's hand and said the one word we'd both avoided for weeks. Enough. And somehow the house heard us. It began to groan. Not collapse, but breathe. Walls warped, doors slammed shut, glass cracked but didn't break. The flames returned, not as destruction, but as cleansing. We walked through them, together, not burning, not afraid, until we stepped outside and saw the house finally crumble, not violently, but slowly, as if it had been waiting for permission to let go. By the time the sun rose, all that was left was the stone slab in the clearing, now split down the center, the symbols erased. We never spoke of it publicly. There are no police reports, no news stories. If you Google the Wren family, you still won't find anything. But sometimes, at 3:12 a.m., I still wake up with Sarah already sitting upright beside me, hand in mine, and we both wait in silence, making sure the house is truly gone. A week after the house disappeared, we received a second Polaroid in the mail. This time it showed both of us, older, standing in that same clearing smiling. We don't remember when it was taken. There was no note, no writing, just a faint scorch mark in the corner of the picture. But that was the final sign. We were free, or so we thought. Because last night our daughter, who just turned 4, stood by the living room mirror and asked me a question that made my skin crawl. She looked at her own reflection and said, "Daddy, who's the man with the fire smile? He says I have to visit his house soon." Then she giggled, waved at nothing, and skipped back to her toys. Maybe the cycle isn't broken. Maybe it just passed through us and into her. And